So as we all know, the first presidential debate is this Thursday, and it'll be former President Donald Trump versus President Joe Biden. And it's definitely going to be not only just an interesting debate, but an interesting election year in general. There's probably more chaos in the country than ever. The country's probably more divided since probably the most divided it's been since the Civil War. It's just a really huge mess, and I'm not sure which side is really favored here. I think it's pretty even. I think we're pretty evenly split. So, but I am surprised that we even got a debate because, the left has been doing this thing where they've been trying to keep Joe Biden hiding, having him speak as little as possible. So it's really interesting that they would agree to this, knowing he's going to be on the grand stage, but going up against a pretty aggressive dude in Trump. So, Trump's not going to hold back. Trump says what he wants. He can't be controlled like other politicians. So it's really interesting that they actually agreed to do this. Of course, there are some stipulations. So let's look at CNN. Biden and Trump campaigns agree to mic muting and podiums among rules for upcoming CNN debate. So the debate will be hosted by CNN's Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. Get into that later. June 27th, which is Thursday. First in-person showdown 2024 campaign between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Both candidates have accepted the network's invitation and agreed to accept the rules and format for the debate. So it's a 90-minute debate, which I'm not sure. I don't remember how long they were last time. I know they were at least over an hour, so that's probably a good amount of time. With 2 commercial breaks, the campaign staff may not interact with their campaign during that time. I think that's really important because I don't think there's anything, and this could be my bias, I don't think there's anything some staffer could tell Trump to say or do, because I don't think you can really control him. But I think that's really important because no one can come to Biden and be like, hey, you said this wrong. Hey, remember this. Hey, what's going on here? Why are you mumbling? Both candidates agree to appear at a uniform podium, and their podium positions will be determined by a coin flip. Interesting. I don't see why it really matters which side of the podium you're on. Maybe someone comment and see if that's actually a thing or not. Microphones will be muted throughout the debate except for the candidate whose turn it is to speak. That's an interesting one because if anybody's seen a debate in the past, we all know candidates always go way past their time on when they're supposed to be speaking. The moderator will be like, okay, and you're still going, right? Sometimes it can be really obnoxious how far they can go on. What's really interesting is since the moderators have this power and they have a clear bias in who they support here, they could really use this to Joe Biden's advantage. Because they could say, like, right when the time hits 0, just cut Trump off from speaking. Now you can finish a sentence, right? But then if the time goes to 0 for Biden, they could maybe wait a second or two because he's finishing a sentence. That could be a huge advantage there. Like, I personally think if the time goes to 0, give them a few seconds, and then if they're still not listening, then you cut them off. I don't think it should be right at 0. I think that's a little obnoxious. So we'll see how aggressive they are with the ability to do that. No props or pre-written notes will be allowed on stage. Candidates will be given a pen, a pad of paper, and a water. So that's interesting, too, because that means Biden's going to have to remember everything he's talking about. So, yeah, that'll be good. There's also an absence of a studio audience, which is interesting because why would you not want a studio audience there unless you realize that you're just that unpopular, unless you just realize that most people there are going to be supporting your opponent to where you wouldn't want that there. Like if you were confident in your ability to not only debate but lead the country, you would have no problem with an audience there. So I think that's a really show sign, a tall tale sign, whatever you want to call it, that the Democrats are scared. And then in order to meet CNN's qualifications for the debate, the candidates must satisfy both requirements. Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution to serve as president. Both Biden and Trump met these requirements, as do RFK Jr., Cornel West, Jill Stein. Participants must also file a formal statement of candidacy to the Federal Election Commission. All 5 have done so. All participating debaters must appear in a sufficient number of state ballots to reach 270 electoral votes threshold to win the presidency and receive at least 15% in 4 separate national polls. And now, This I think is a little shady because it says Kennedy's receiving 50% in at least 3 polls. Um, he's currently on the ballot in 6 states. This was from what, June 15th? I think it's more than that now. But I do think both sides, the Republicans probably doing this too. Both sides are probably making it really hard for Kennedy to get on these ballots because Kennedy is a force to be reckoned with, especially when people hear him speak. I think he draws the more moderate Democrats and the moderate Republicans who are both like these two sides. Maybe their ideas are a little too extreme. Kennedy's kind of like a happy medium. And personally, for me, I do agree with some of the things he says. Some of the things he's kind of wild about, like when it comes to environment, abortion, stuff like that. But I'm really big on what he says about like chemicals in the food, things like that, like more health wise stuff. He's really big on. So I do think personally for me, I think he should be in a debate. I think it definitely would make it more interesting for all candidates because I think Trump would probably bulldoze Biden. I don't think Trump would be able to bulldoze Kennedy. The only thing that would suck if Kennedy was there is, no offense to him, it's kind of hard to hear, like listen to him sometimes, which is I know is not his fault, but it's just really unfortunate that his voice has become like that. So let's look at the polling right now. It's pretty much dead even. Trump, Biden, 44% each. These are all without Kennedy. Trump 50-49, Trump 44-42, Trump 50-48. This is a Maryland one. Joe Biden's one. I live in Maryland. Joe Biden's 100% going with Maryland no matter what. 44-43. This is Arizona. Trump's winning. Trump's winning Georgia. Trump's winning Missouri. So you get the idea. General elections, pretty dead even. So this could really be a way of getting momentum in the election year if they have a good debate. Now, what topics do you think are going to be brought up? Personally, for me, I think abortion is definitely going to be brought up. I think climate change is going to be brought up, healthcare, gun safety. But if you look at what's actually important to the American people, this is from July 2023 to February 2024. It might have changed the past few months. Number one is immigration, which we all know has been a huge issue the last few years. Joe Biden's trying to act like he all of a sudden wants to fix it in election year. He let it go loose for 3 years, and then all of a sudden there's legislation for immigration, which doesn't even fix the problem. It still lets in over 1 million people a year. Doesn't even, and all it does is speeds up the asylum process to let them in faster. It doesn't keep them out. There's no way of more of keeping them out. So there's no solution there. But naturally, that's going to be. I think if they bring up immigration, Biden's going to mention that and say it's the Republicans' fault. Even though if anybody with two brain cells could see, wait a second, he ignored it in 2021, 2022, 2023. Oh, now he came up with legislation. What's the difference? Is it an election year? So I think that, yeah, I think that Trump should be able to destroy him on that. Second's inflation. Still a big thing. Even when the Biden Harris tweets 0% inflation in May, it's a lie because it just didn't go up at all. It's still at, I think, 3.4%, still higher than before COVID, before Biden took office. It's still an issue. Prices are still going up drastically. I feel like that's something like, yeah, it's not 9% anymore like it was, or 7 or 8, but it's still an issue. And it's still hard for the normal middle class American family to keep up with. So I think if Trump hammered that down, that could help him a lot. Jobs and economy, number 3. The economy is rough. Like the stock market will fool you because that only benefits the rich. Like the stock market is not necessarily a representation on how good the economy is doing because like all these companies, stock market wise, are doing great, but yet these restaurants are shutting down, stores are shutting down all throughout the country. People are losing their jobs all throughout the country. And it's just not. And then the jobs reports they present, they're like, oh, this many jobs are added. Most of them are part time. A lot of them go to immigrants, not Americans. So it's very misleading. And then you have all these other issues kind of all melded together. You get government spending, always an issue, never going to be fixed. Healthcare, abortion. See, this is where it gets me too. Is if you only watch CNN or MSNBC or any other kind of liberal network, you would think abortion is the number one issue in the country. But if you look here, it's what, 7th, 8th at what, 16%? That's not that big an issue like they're trying to act like it is. But that's really the only thing they can do to get votes because they trigger an emotional response by bringing that up. And unfortunately, a lot of women fall for it. So yeah, that'll probably be brought up, and Biden will probably try to hammer that in. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. And Trump's already said he's not touching it, but we can see how they turn it on him. So that's basically the topics. Other stuff, I'm kind of just going over like everything to do with the debate I can think of. So this is Trump offers to take a drug screening if Biden agrees to the same test. So this is interesting. We know Trump has always been against drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. So he definitely knows he would pass this. But it's really interesting because if you look at Biden on any normal day, he looks lost. He doesn't know what he's doing. He mumbles a lot. But then you look at him at the State of the Union, when all eyes were on him, and he had the whole world watching. He actually sounded pretty good up until the end. I think when the drugs were wearing off, he definitely had something in his system to help him focus. I don't know, it was like Adderall, cocaine. I don't know. He had something in his system to keep him going. And I mean, I don't know what reason the liberals could use to say no to this, which is I think puts them in a tricky spot. Like if they say no, they're clearly hiding something. But then if they say yes, Biden's not going to be a top 4. So it's definitely an interesting one. I think they'll just ignore it until up to the debate. They'll say, oh, we already agreed to terms. This is too late. All that nonsense. So who's moderating? Well, that is Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, I think her name is, two CNN reporters. So I'm just going to play this video first, and then you tell me what you think about if it's going to be biased or not.
The dehumanizing rhetoric of Adolf Hitler is once again alive and well on a national political stage. This time, of course, in the United States. Donald Trump, a couple times over the weekend, referred to immigrants from South America, Africa, and Asia. He did not mention Europe. South America, Africa, and Asia as, quote, poisoning the blood of our country, which it's not hyperbole. That does very directly echo Adolf Hitler's language before World War II. To open up a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf, you would find the Nazi leader describing the mixing of non-Germans with Germans as poisoning. There's really no other way to say it. Donald Trump's language mirrors this directly.
So this is one of the moderators. Clearly, he has a very unbiased view of Donald Trump, right? He's only referred to him as the leader of Germany multiple times. That was just, 3 times right there? Who knows how many times he's actually done? That was just a short 45-second clip. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play it off when it comes. Like, obviously, they're going to probably get the same questions, right? But it'll be interesting to see how hard they push. Like, say Biden answers, and he's like, I'm going to fix immigration by throwing money at it. And they're like, oh, that's a great answer, right? And then Trump's like, I'm going to kick everyone out of the country because we have an immigration issue. And they're like, oh, how much are you going to spend on that? Oh, is this right? Oh, what about the humanity? And they're going to ask all these questions pushing Trump. And I don't think they will do that for Biden. I could be wrong. But clearly, these analysts have a clear bias. And this is why I think like these kind of debates, I think should go to more neutral, which is obviously kind of hard to find in today's world. That's why I think it needs to go more like podcasting. Like I think Joe Rogan would be perfect for this. Joe Rogan's not a big fan of Trump. He's definitely not a big fan of Biden. Pretty neutral. He'll ask tough questions. And I think and the world's shifting more to podcasts anyway. No one's really watching major news networks anymore. CNN only exists because Trump is alive. Once Trump is gone, CNN will not exist anymore. CNN's going to have nothing to talk about. And I think the average age viewer of Fox News and MSNBC is like 70. 10 years, they're not going to exist. It's going to be podcasters. So I think they need to go more that direction because there's neutral ones out there that would be beneficial to both sides, that would actually ask hard questions and just push either side. No bias is what I'm trying to get at. Now, I don't know when that'll ever happen, but I think that would be a huge help. Here's another one. So this is Dana Bash, the woman that's going to be there. So I'll just play this for you real quick.
Here's a question that I have, because it is, again, it seems like the Supreme Court is in a bubble, or perhaps it's some of the justices are in a bubble, and they're not dealing with, I mean, when they say, oh, Congress can do this, there are members of Congress, and we can go through the list, who are never going to do anything that would make life difficult for Donald Trump. So to think that the Congress is going to solve this, they barely can get a post office name these days.
It's true. I mean, and you can go down the list of Supreme Court decisions that kicked whatever issue over across the street over to Congress, whether it is, Obamacare, which is something that the Democrats were very happy about when they did that, a little bit of a different kind of court. Voting rights, I think, is maybe the primary example of what you're saying before this. Look, unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be. They wanted Congress, the people who are closest to their constituents, to be able to make the rules of the.
So they're talking about when Colorado tried taking Trump off the ballot. I think Maine tried doing it. I think there was a third state that tried. And the Supreme Court ruled that you can't do that for a federal election. I think in state elections, they probably could if they wanted to. Federal elections, you cannot. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled. Mind you, that was a 9-0 ruling. And even the liberal justices said, yes, you cannot take them off the ballot. Just to show you how ridiculous this even was for an idea that to take him off. Because a lot of times the Supreme Court issues like Roe v. Wade, stuff like that, it's usually 6-3. There's 6 conservatives, 3 liberals. Usually how most of their votings go, 6-3. This was 9-0. It was so ridiculous for them to even try. And then you have people like this who say it's unfortunate for America that happened. Unfortunate for America that has to get to Congress, and Congress has to be the one to make those decisions. You should never be able to, unless the president murdered someone or something. You can't take them off the ballot. And that just shows. And they were trying to do this to protect democracy by taking their opponent off the ballot. Literally, if you heard that in any other country, you'd be like, wow, what a dictatorship. But for some reason here, it's okay. It's allowed here. And honestly, it's crazy that was ever even a possibility of happening, that he could have potentially been taken off the ballot. This shows the steps the Democrats have taken to try to get him off the ballot, disappear. They tried getting him off like that. They tried indicting him 4 different times, including finding him making him a convicted felon, and he's still there because they can't beat him one-on-one. They have to do all these dirty tricks. So I don't think these people are going to be unbiased at all. I think they're going to be incredibly biased, and I think it's going to be a 3-on-1 battle. I think Trump knows this going into it. I think Trump wants to show the world that this is happening, and I think he's going to call it out. But I don't know. I think you're going to have to watch it live to really find out, because obviously if you do go a day later, all you see is clips. They're going to be heavily edited, heavily clipped. So you're definitely going to have to watch it live to get the full effect of how it's going to go. Another thing that's biased, Dana Bash's husband apparently was, so he was one of the people who falsely claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So when the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing was happening in 2020, and all these social media sites were censoring that story and not letting it get out, he was one of them pushing it, saying this is Russian disinformation, when it was true. He lied to everyone. So yeah, no bias there. Last thing I want to kind of bring up, which I think is interesting, Tim Pool brought this up a day or two ago. Apparently CNN is trying to make it to where independent media companies like Tim Pool, like Louder with Crowder, Daily Wire, cannot stream and comment on the debate stream Thursday, which is really interesting because it's a presidential debate. So regardless of who's hosting it, that should fall under fair use, because this is information the whole public needs. This is like requirement. It's not like, oh, we need to pay for this to get this information. No, this deals with all of our lives. It should be fair use no matter who's hosting it. And if you don't like that fact, you shouldn't host it then. So he tweets, CNN is now threatening any social channels that provide commentary on the debate, stating they will not allow the use outside of CNN. Commentary on a presidential debate is the epitome of fair use, and we fully intend to provide insight and real-time fact-checking Thursday live. And then he actually tagged Elon on this. Question for Elon. Will live commentary and fact-checking shows for the CNN debate be taken down if CNN files a DMCA, or will X default to fair use and have the matter handled externally? So, and Elon did respond, and he says the public has the right to see presidential debates however they would like. So basically saying he's not going to take anything now, no matter how much CNN tries to push. What's interesting, though, is Fox News did try this during one of the Republican primaries, and it failed. They were trying to do something like this. Tim Pool said they put in a few copyright things. It didn't go anywhere because YouTube said this is fair use, right? But will YouTube say this the other way around, though, is what I'm wondering. Because Tim Pool said, I should have pulled the video. Tim Pool said that YouTube first contacted him saying, hey, you need to talk to CNN to make sure it's okay for you to do this. YouTube did this to a lot of news channels. So it's like, if YouTube is contacting you, say I was doing something like this. If YouTube is contacting me saying, hey, you need to check with CNN before you do this, to me, that makes it seem like YouTube's going to follow whatever CNN wants, which means if CNN's pushing for that, I would not be surprised to see if YouTube starts taking down live streams Thursday night midstream. And that's censorship, because stuff like what Tim Pool does and what Steven Crowder do, they fact check live. I usually personally, I watch these usually like a day later because I like to immerse myself in the debate, and Steven Crowder tends to talk too much. I like to do, but he talks too much during these debates. I like to immerse myself in the debate. I want to get the everything for myself first, and then hear from someone else and what they think. So, but I think it's wrong for them to take this down or take people down that are doing that, especially because CNN, the whole idea of it is I think they're trying to push away independent media, because they are allowing ABC, Fox News, all the big stations to do it, MSNBC, but it's just independent ones they're not allowing. Shady to me. Like, they should allow everyone if they're going to do that. They shouldn't just do one or the other. And I think they're scared of independent media, which they should be. Independent media is coming up. There's so many different podcasters, so much different news out there from different news sources, and they're losing, and they know that. And a big reason is all they do is talk about Trump, talk about real news sometimes. You know, all the bashing of Trump gets old after a while. But that's just a few things for this debate. I personally think Trump will pummel Biden. Probably a biased opinion. I think it will be an interesting debate. I think the next debate's not until September. And then there is one VP debate, which at this point in time, I keep hearing sometime this week we'll hear who Trump's VP will be. As of this point in time, Tuesday night when I'm recording this, we do not know. I personally hope it's Vivek. I think he would destroy Kamala. Personally, I think that'd be so enjoyable to watch. But let me know what you guys think in the comment about this debate, this whole situation, this whole election. Make sure you like and subscribe down to all my channels below. It'd be really much appreciated, and I will see you next time.